Okay, I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting Tuesday, January 8th to order. Roll call. Alder Galvin.
Here.
Alder Cooper Stacks.
Present.
Alder Kathy LaFave.
Here.
And Alder Dorff here. All right. Agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes?
Motion by Alder Galvin, second by Alder LaFave to approve the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. I want to mention that Alder Brian Johnson is also here with us, and there was another Alder, but he may
Chris
have
is
left.
left.
Yep, he may have left, okay. All right, regular business. Report of the purchasing manager.
We have 4 items on the agenda to discuss, and I'll probably talk about item 1B and 1C together because they're pretty much related. But the first item is 1A, and that's a request for the approval to purchase 46 Panasonic Toughbook computers for the police department from Baycom for $205,252. This was publicly bid. We received 4 quotes, and Baycom was the low bidder.
Are these for the police cars? They are, and will it help, then they would not need to leave the car running? Because my understanding was that other computers would drain the battery. Is that why we're getting these new ones?
I can address that, but Jason Vanham is really our computer expert. My understanding is the computers that we have outlived their lifespan. This was a scheduled reintroduction of new computers. I don't think these are going to change the leaving the car running thing. We've addressed that with extra batteries and some changes we made to the computer systems themselves. But Jason is probably the smartest guy when it comes to that. If you have any questions about it, he's the right guy to answer them.
Okay. Jason, do you think, come on up, because my understanding is that they're not supposed to leave the cars running anymore, and I was concerned, unless that's just a rumor, but I was concerned about the computers failing then.
Yes, ma'am. Currently, the computers that we have in place shut down once you get to a certain voltage level. So once the batteries, if they were to drain to a certain point, then they would go into a sort of soft shutdown phase. That's going to be happening with the same, with the new computers as well. Just once they get to a certain voltage, these are going to have battery backups the same way that the old ones do. It's just these batteries are newer; they're going to last longer. Things along those lines. The big thing is with the secondary batteries in the new vehicles, ma'am, that will allow for a longer runtime without us having to worry about the voltage draining to a certain point.
Okay.
But the reason why we're replacing these is basically because the old ones are outdated and are starting to fail on us, and this was a planned purchase last year.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, good.
What do we do with the old ones?
They'll get recycled, sir.
What-
They'll get recycled, electronics recycling.
Take the stuff out of them and
Yes, sir.
junk them?
Yeah. I mean, we'll continue on with the lifespan for whichever ones we have in place. We may have to do selective interchange with parts and things along those lines, but then they'll be electronically recycled, sir.
And 46 represents the entire fleet?
That represents the entire fleet plus one spare. So we have a spare in case one of the pieces of equipment breaks, then we can swap that in place while it gets repaired.
So we're talking like the CSIs?
The CSIs have been replaced, I believe it was 2 years ago. These now are for the 43 black and white marked squads, as well as we have two animal control trucks, and then 43 marked squads, 2 animal control trucks, and then that will leave us with the one spare.
Okay, all right, thank you.
What is the general lifespan? That's what I was going to ask.
These are going to come with a 5-year warranty, ma'am. So this will allow for 5 years, and then once you get past that point, the hardware and software no longer supported. So anything that breaks, that's going to be on us to, any additional cost for drive failures, for fan failures, things along those lines, that would be on us for that cost. Typically, we go 4 to 5 years, just due to the nature of driving these things around, going over bumps, being jostled constantly. We typically reach 4 or 5 years when we start experiencing hardware failures, which is what we're going through now.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm good.
Thank you.
Do we want to do these item by item?
Do we want to do these item by item, staff, or just take them all at once? What would you like?
You certainly could approve this one, and then we can move on to the
Okay,
next
I'll
item.
entertain a motion to.
Motion to approve item 1A.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Alder Galvin, second by Alder LaFave. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I just want to point out that Alder Chris Weary is with us, so thank you.
I've not left the building.
All right, the next item.
Items 1B and 1C have to do with our wireless cell phone contract. We've been under contract for many, many years with Cellcom, but there has been a significant change in the industry as it affects public safety departments. And I'll have one of the chiefs explain that, or Jeremy, whoever wants to explain it. AT&T FirstNet has a wireless service for public safety departments only. It's a dedicated line. Well, they're going to be able to explain it better than I did. In a nutshell, what we're proposing, we're essentially kind of in the middle of testing equipment, et cetera, is assigning a contract to AT&T for police and fire, and then all other city accounts will remain on a Cellcom contract. Both these contracts are administered through the state of Wisconsin. The costs for both services are essentially neutral. They're the same. All of the providers on the state contract charge approximately the same rates. So many dollars per line, so much for data. So the cost doesn't come into play as much here as the significant change with the advent of a public safety network. So I'll let whoever wants to take it from here.
Well, good evening and Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year.
I think the important part about this new network, just stepping back a little bit of the history, I think it was 5 years ago, the federal government recognized the fact that we had a radio problem in the country with interoperability, being able to talk with neighbors and people on different frequencies and so forth and so on. And so the international police chiefs and fire chiefs basically got together and started pushing for the FCC to designate a bandwidth just for public safety. They went out and they went from what's called a wide band down to a narrow band. Wavelengths doesn't make a lot of, that really doesn't matter, but they created space. They had a public bid on that for all the national companies, and AT&T came away as the winner in that bid. Verizon bid on it. Cellcom's much too small to bid on a national thing like that, but the major providers all bid, and AT&T was a successful bidder. What's that do for us? Well, in the immediate term, I will tell you that it gives us priority and preemption. So what that means is, if you've ever been at Lambeau Field on a game day and you try to use your phone, and you get that little thing that sits there and spins and spins and spins. Well, with this FirstNet program, it gives police and fire personnel these devices priority and preemption. If it's too busy, it'll kick all of you off and put us on. It puts us to the front of the line, and it's got a designated tunnel, so to speak, for public safety. So we did some testing with this out there this year after this system came out, and it's not fully built out yet. They have 5 years under their contract to fully build it out across the country. But we did do some testing here in the city, and we set our Cellcom phones right next to our AT&T phones that we were using as demos. We sent the same document. The document on the FirstNet or AT&T system we got almost instantaneously, and while the Cellcom one sat there and spun for like 5 minutes, and we still hadn't got it at that time, but we just kind of, and that happened numerous times over the last 7 or 8 weeks of the season that we were out there. I think one of the bigger things, it's cost neutral, as Rick said before. I think one of the other things that down the line, they're going to build out what's called push to talk. And at some point, not immediately, but at some point down the road, we may be able to eliminate our portable radios that we're using. So Motorola charges, I don't know, $6,000 a portable radio for us to be able to talk on a 700 megahertz system, a digital system. At some point down the road, 2, 3, 4 years down the road here, we may be able to, that's kind of what they're kind of guiding us to. We may be able to eliminate those costs, both in police and fire departments. So that's a huge potential savings there for both of our departments.
Would you have it's an instantaneous communication, or do you still have to dial phone?
No, it'd be it's basically push to talk, so it'd be just
Okay,
like
push to talk,
pushing our radios. It'd be the same thing, only we'd be using cell phones.
Good.
And they've got some ruggedized cell phones that are out. It's the technology is going to get much better over the next several years.
Great.
But there's that potential soft cost savings out there as well. I think that's really the, kind of the biggest thing, that, you know, all of our special events that we're operating at, when things are very busy in the city, this gives us the ability to immediately talk to each other, and it gives us the ability to immediately get documents back and forth. It will give us the ability to get live feedback from drones if we deploy a drone, for crowd control measures if we put it up in the air, and looking at what crowds are doing and those kind of things, looking at fires from the sky, all those kind of different things. The police are doing a hunt for somebody. We're going to be able to get instantaneous feedback on this system, so.
With the system, not the future that you're
Right
looking at.
now.
So right now, 4th of July fireworks, we put a drone up. Every officer could access that drone, I guess, if they're allowed to.
I'm not sure how that all will work as far as every officer, but I know that the command center will be able to pull it in on their screens, and they'll be able to.
They'll be able to communicate by phone if they need to go over a secure channel, so to speak.
Yep.
And this 29,000 extra a year compared to the Cellcom is because there's more phones involved, or? it's-
Rick, I'm not sure about the money on that. I answer that.
That comes because we have a number of officers that still carry the traditional flip phones,
Mhm.
and those are just under voice contract, so they don't come with any texting or any data. So to go to that data and texting contract, that's $40 per phone, and that's where that extra fee comes in, because it's just more expensive to get that data plan than it is the standard voice.
For
But
what-
in order to access that capability, you need to have a smartphone.
All right, for a while, officers were being allowed to use their own cell phone. Are we now issuing a cell phone to every officer?
Yes, each officer would be issued a
So
cell
that
phone.
is a department phone,
That is correct.
and all the other stuff that goes along with it will apply to those, correct?
That's correct.
Are they going to be allowed to carry their private phones with them?
That, I don't, is that?
Yeah, they'll be able to still carry their private phones with them while they're working, in case of emergency from the family or whatever. But they'd be expected to use the city phone for all city things. For instance, documenting crime scenes, making tape recordings, photographic evidence of anything.
Okay.
All those types of things would be done in the city
So that
phone.
becomes ours, searchable, everything. All right.
Sure could.
And along with that, we also did include in our pricing structure a ruggedized case for it, because obviously police are out in all kinds of weather, as are firefighters. So we wanted to make sure that we're protecting the city's investment by having good ruggedized cases on all of them. That will be mandatory as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We'll entertain a motion then.
Make a motion to approve item 1B and 1C together.
Second.
Okay, motion by Alder Galvin, second by Alder Corpus Dax to approve 1B and 1C together. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 1D is really just informational, reporting that I met with finance. I was contacted by a vendor that provides energy audits. And long story short, this vendor provided an energy audit for the city's natural gas usage. And because of their expertise in the industry, they can affect a savings of about $33,000 to $35,000 per year over our current rates. How does that work? We gave our account information, so all of the facilities, they are all assigned a separate account. We provided all that information to Tradition Energy.
Just to clarify, it's all of our information from WPS.
Yes.
All of our accounts at WPS.
And Tradition Energy worked with WPS and analyzed all this data. This type of savings doesn't affect WPS, my understanding. WPS makes their money on the transmission of the natural gas. They don't mark up what they pay for the natural gas. They make the money on their transmission lines, if that's the appropriate term. Tradition Energy did a bid with natural gas as a commodity, and they were able to reduce the cost per decatherm, whatever that is. I don't know if that's a pound or a cubic yard or what a decatherm is, but reduce the average cost over 3 years from $4.20 to $3.50. Yeah, that's achieved about a 20% savings. This This company, I checked their references. They are a member of U.S. Communities, which is a national cooperative contract that we've used in a number of cases. So, and then we brought them in for interviews with the finance department. We also had the contract thoroughly vetted through the law department. So, good news is that over a 3-year period of time, we'll save a little over $100,000. The only downside is that the contract won't start until November of this year because WPS had contract commitments that had been in place up until that time. So I guess what I'm doing is just reporting that we've entered into this agreement with Tradition Energy to reduce the price of natural gas throughout the city.
So just a motion to receive and place on file? Would that be
I
appropriate?
would think so.
Okay, motion by Alder Lefebvre,
Second.
second by Alder Corp Stacks. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. D2, resolution authorizing the 2018 transfer of $15,079.90 from contingency for expenses related to referendum questions from the last election. Staff?
Back on September 11th, on our finance committee, the committee had approved to use an estimated cost of $15,000 for the referendum cost. At that point, we had said we would use contingency, and we said we'd also bring it back to the committee once we knew the final amount, and then we would take through our resolution. So this is really a follow-up from the September 11th finance, which went to the council on the 18th of September.
So this has to go back to council again then?
Right, the resolution will go through the
Okay.
council next week, and again, the estimated cost was right, it was
Really
would
close.
be $15,000. Yep, and we have a line item invoice from Brown County, and that's where the $15,079.90 came from.
Okay. Any discussion?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Motion to approve by Alder Galvin? Second. Second by Alder Corpus Stacks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Done.
Motion. Did you say aye?
I said aye because it's already done,
Okay.
so.
Okay, motion
Carried.
motion carries unanimously. All right. Number 3, consideration with possible action on requested amendments to Claims Administration Procedure Ordinance GBMC 7.01 at SEC. Staff?
Okay. I am going to turn it over to our legal team.
Okay.
So this draft is relating to the claims administration process. I believe it was previously discussed in detail by City Attorney Chavez back in August with the committee. So it's the same version that was discussed before. It's just an actual draft ordinance format for the committee to review. It has 2 basic changes. It's changing the the financial level of authorization from $5,000 to $50,000 to better and more expeditiously settle claims. And it also changes the makeup of the claims committee structure by adding in the risk manager and the paralegal.
I remember the discussion. That's what we asked for. Yes?
If you look at the relief fund, I think we got a conflict. Because here it says that the claims settle all claims, everything. And in our relief fund, we're saying that we are going to, if it's denied from the claims, that we are going to make a determination on payments. I think there's a conflict, isn't there, between the two?
The relief fund would not be applicable to claims. So these are claims, essentially claims that are denied that would qualify would then petition for funding or relief assistance from the relief fund.
But in the relief fund, it says if the claims committee denies, it
Correct.
comes before us, and then we can make a determination. Here it says that the claims committee makes the final decision.
It's a different
So
source
I'm
of
just,
funds.
I just want to
But
make
it's a
sure
different-
that it's
It's a different
clear.
source
Yeah.
of funds,
It's a
right,
different source of
correct,
funds.
right.
Has
Okay.
nothing to do
Maybe
with.
it
So the
needs to be
claims committee is
somehow
making a
stated in
determination
there
as
too.
to, right, the claims committee is making a determination as to negligence and liability and the amount that it should be settled at, or whether it should be
Does
denied
it
based
s-
on the fact that the city is not negligent in any way, or there isn't any liability assessed to the city.
I can't remember, does it state that, that's the negligence and all that in here? Would it have to be stated in this one?
It's stated, a claim filed under state, adoption of state law, which it provides in 7.01.
Okay.
State law provides the procedure on how you file a claim against a municipality for property damage and
So
personal
that
injury.
would cover
Yes.
it then?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because when I was reading it, I wasn't sure, it sounded like a conflict.
Sure.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Alder Word?
Thanks. Happy New Year. Good to get going again. My apologies if I missed maybe some of the details of the earlier discussion, but initially, whose request was this? Was it an older person or was it staff?
I'll be honest with you, I don't recall.
It's been a while. Probably staff.
I was gonna say, originally, to change the claim ordinance was to change it from the 5,000 up to 50,000 and to add 2 additional people. That was by staff, correct?
So by department heads, yourself?
Yes, and Vanessa. I'm an attorney Chavez.
And why the change?
Well, I think that when we looked at the claims, as we're doing the claims every month, that we needed to give more latitude to the claims committee because so many were coming here that were just of the smaller amounts. And so it's really that they're adding someone to the committee and then giving that committee some authority over larger amounts.
What's the most right now that a claim can be for the city? Is it 50,000?
It's 50,000 for personal injury and property damage not involving a motor vehicle accident. So if it involves a car accident, so if there's injuries or property damage sustained due to an accident, a car accident, then that cap is 250. So those, anything above a 50K would still come to the finance committee for approval.
Have we studied what other cities do?
I believe City Attorney Chavez did look into that, and based on what she had reviewed, those were her recommendations.
'Cause
To
it-
increase it to 50,000 and to, because of that increase, to also add additional people to be part of the makeup of the claims committee to add in their
Yeah.
review and assessment.
That sounds like certainly a good part. Just in my review of other cities, it's quite the change going from 5,000 all the way up to 50,000, which is the max for probably the majority of our complaints, I would think. You know, if you look at Milwaukee, much bigger than us, theirs is 25,000 max that the committee handles up to without approval of the city council. Janesville's 5,000, and then the city council kicks in after that. De Pere, everything runs through the De Pere City Council. Ann Arbor is 5,000. I didn't have time to Google everything, you have to dig quite deep, but there's an example of a lot of cities see value in keeping the city council involved in these decisions, otherwise you're cutting them out. I think it's our responsibility to hear appeals on some of these larger ones, you know, maybe double it to 10,000, but I think we should stay involved, otherwise really if there's no appeal to us whatsoever, we're cut right out. They'd have to go to court. I think it's denies citizens the right to appeal to their elected representatives. We're ceding our authority to an unelected panel for a pretty important part of what we do. So I would just urge denial of the request, sending it back to rewrite, or just change 5,000 to 10,000, maybe to keep up with inflation, whatever. Maybe we haven't changed it in a while, but I think 50,000 is too much. Thanks.
That is a lot of money. And isn't it for the departments when they are requesting equipment and different things? What is that amount?
Wasn't that,
Just
What do you-
recently changed to 25.
we changed it
Yeah,
to 25.
yeah, so
I mean, I
now
could
you're
see
at
20.
150 on
But
this. That seems kind of high, doesn't it?
But you know what I'd like to do is maybe see if maybe we can't wait, but if we could wait until Attorney Chavez, because she did so much of the research on this, just to hold this till the next meeting.
Will she be back for the next meeting?
Yes, she returns on Monday.
Which means you will be gone.
Pretty soon.
Still
willing.
here, we still have
Hopefully.
8 more
Oh.
weeks to go,
Oh,
but
okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought
But
you-
yes, I will happily be handing this all back to her.
So
Alright.
how would you guys feel about,
I have no problem waiting.
I
I'd make a
don't know.
motion that we
We'll see.
wait until Attorney
Yeah.
Chavez can address the committee.
Is that a count?
is
Yeah,
that,
that's
okay,
my
motion by
motion.
Alder Galvin
Then
that
I'll
we
second.
hold on this till, should we just say a date certain or till? you know,
Well,
well, what if,
Next
you know,
meeting,
how about
because
by
just in case it had
February?
to change. huh?
How about,
January 29th is our next meeting.
so okay,
Just
January
say by-
29th,
You want to, okay.
okay?
Because you're not asking for large changes, you're just asking whether or not she would consider a different amount other than
Just
$50,000.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about why that amount was chosen
Right.
to, and I don't remember, because it's been a long time.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you, Alder Wery. All right, all those in favor of holding this till the 29th?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Item 4, consideration with possible action to approve an ordinance relating to the establishment of a relief fund and associated funding sources. Staff.
Yes, so staff has finalized the draft ordinance, which you have in your packets, which should implement all of the discussions and recommendations that have been made by the committee and by staff. And ACA Johnson is here to answer any specific questions you have about the structure and the language of the ordinance itself.
I have a question on the uninhabitable. Some residents had contacted me too. They were-
Under what
Oh,
section
I'm
of the
sorry.
ordinance is that? Just so I
It's
know.
okay, number 1. Okay, it talks about the uninhabitable. What do you mean by uninhabitable? Because their basements were flooded, and it was, excess rain and that, but then the power went out. And they had, the basements were coded that they could have bedrooms down there, family rooms and that. Well, their upstairs is habitable, but their downstairs was not. So how do we? So how's the determination on?
Well, in
That's
city
what
inspections
you're right.
regularly determines whether or not homes are habitable. So they would likely go in and make those determinations. It's electrical systems, plumbing systems, things like that, big ticket items that are damaged and makes the home basically unlivable. It was a lot of back and forth over what, we were gonna recommend should be covered and shouldn't be covered. I know you guys have gone back and forth a lot with City Attorney Chavez about this relief fund. She's done a lot of work on it. It's something that's unique to our municipality if we were to adopt it. And the main reason that we structured it the way that we did is because we have to state a valid public purpose in order to use public funds. And the public purpose that we would identify for this relief fund would be protecting the tax base by making sure that homes do not remain in a state of disrepair. So we would recommend that it shouldn't cover things like damages or, furniture, or if somebody has things like that. But basically just returning the home to a habitable state so that it's on the tax roll and people are living in it and the citizens are well taken care of. But we would have to limit it somehow, and, it is a draft. We don't know exactly what that would look like, but we're open to your suggestions, and then we'd have to kind of figure out along the way how it's gonna work.
These people had their furnaces were down there and different things like that, but they were still able to live in the upstairs parts. So you're saying, actually, what you got here uninhabitable, you're saying, well, they can live upstairs. But
Well, no, I
So,
think what she's saying
I
is an
wanna make sure.
inspector. Our inspectors will
Will
determine
determine
whether
if-
it's habitable.
even if they have damage downstairs, but they can
uninhabitable.
still.
That
Okay, I
will
just-
be, I think,
Because
an
that
inspection
wording
issue.
just kind of throws me off on
Right.
that.
Yeah, and I
Usually when there's
understand that.
damage done, say a vehicle drives into a home or a tree falls on it, the city inspectors are called out. They'll inspect that site and make a determination whether people live in there or not. And if not, they'll give them a list of what needs to be done before they can return and live in there. So, if it's the middle of winter and the furnace is flooded and it doesn't operate anymore, I could see where that would probably fall under such a situation. If it's the middle of summer, you don't need the furnace.
Yes,
Again,
that's
so-
what happened
but-
with these people. So would they qualify?
No. Well, again, it would be up.
It would be up to whether the inspector said it was uninhabitable.
Right.
And I think we would need to leave it up to an inspector to
And even the
determine
health
that.
department could get
The
involved.
health
They're
department
kinda-
could get involved.
Right,
Yep.
and if I could just interrupt, no matter what
Yes.
time of year it is, it has to have a working furnace, a working AC system,
Okay.
working electrical, plumbing, all things like that.
Okay, so then
and they
would-
typically would
okay.
say,
I
well,
just
you
want
can
to
just
make
live
sure
upstairs in
that
your
they
bedroom.
wouldn't be,
Right.
blocked out from this because they could live upstairs.
Well,
Because this
But-
was
but
when it
according
was
to the
warmer. I
legal
mean, it wasn't
definition.
in the winter.
Right,
area,
They would look
okay,
at the home as a whole.
okay.
And I guess,
Okay, as long as that's.
my concern with this is, as I'm hearing, you have a constituent that had flooding. I have one that had flooding because the city pump is not operating.
Okay.
And they have plans to replace it, but in the meantime, their basement flooded. The city comes out with a pump, pumps out because it's a low-lying area. The city brings a pump over every time it rains heavy, but it still doesn't prevent their basement from flooding. So, we kind of looked at this one incident on Humboldt Road,
Yeah,
but how much more is out there that we're not aware of? And how much more could we be liable for, and how much more would the taxpayers be footing the bill? I've had people tell me, you're running a business in your house, do you have insurance to cover the business being put out of operation? Is that their responsibility? So there's things like GoFundMe pages that you see plenty of people using nowadays. And I understand, I feel for these individuals in this case. I feel sorry for anyone that
yeah.
has flooding in that. But, you start looking at, because of city services, well, what constitutes city services in some extent. And so I think I understand what we're doing here. I think is the intention is good, but I think we're opening a Pandora's box that could be down the road haunting this community pretty deeply financially. And I have some grave concerns about this moving forward.
Any other alders want to comment on this?
Can we open it up to the audience?
Again, I was just asking if there were any alders first.
Right, because Nancy,
I forgot.
Do you want-
We don't need to talk.
You don't
We're
want
just-
to?
In
Okay.
case they had questions for the one.
okay, okay. I think one thing too, that they're a little concerned that they will be liable maybe, that you're going to look at the funds from, where are the funds
I
going to
don't-
come? How are we
we
going
have
to
not
establish
decided
these
that.
funds? Yeah.
Never determined and I have never personally heard it said that the water utility would be paying for any of this, so I'm not sure where that came from, but obviously
They
other
just wanna
people
make
talk
sure
about
that-
it besides us,
Right,
but.
There was a-
because the PSC has
Yeah.
specific rules that they cannot take
Right.
ratepayers' funds to pay for any of this. which
I
is-
think in the August meeting, there was a suggestion whether or not the PSC would think about putting more money in their rates to help pay for some kind of water damage.
If-
That was a recommendation or suggestion, and at that point, I had
That
reached
would
out to
have to be
Nancy
through
and,
them, yes.
at the water utility and see whether or not that was something they would consider. And that is, as a result, we got a letter back saying that they are not able to do that.
In the ordinance, I noticed that there was a part about all insurances, but is there, and I can't find it, but we had said that there should be something in there that this would only apply if there was no insurance, or.
There
or
is
if
a
the-
section,
there- I'm sure it's in there, I just can't find
Yeah,
it.
there was, I don't know where the heck was that?
Just wanted to make sure.
It
that
does say
it was
here
in there.
somewhere.
Because we've talked about it.
I believe it's
Is it
section
down further?
5.
Section 3.
Three?
C, other revenue sources
Oh, I think
available
it's
to
section
the property
3, yeah, sub C.
Yep.
Other revenue sources available to property owner. Relief is unavailable in instances where insurance coverage
Okay,
is
I just
available.
wanted to make sure that was in there, okay.
And again, we tried to cover all of our bases, but we were kind of starting from scratch, so.
nothing. Right. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this? Did you raise your
I
hand?
don't know what to say that, I haven't probably already.
Well, I just will vote to open the floor.
I'll second.
Okay, okay, who would like,
Motion open the floor.
motion open the floor by Clerk of Stacks, second by Elder Galvin, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the floor is open. Please come up and state your name and fill out one of the cards if you'd like to speak. And your address.
Geisel, 1121 12th Avenue, Green Bay. I think it's important that we create some kind of emergency relief fund. I mean, there are all kinds of situations that is not the homeowner's fault, and yet they're suffering big losses. I can think of, we have an antiquated sewer system. I'd asked for a study some time ago, and they estimated $50 to $100 million to correct all the problems in our sewer system. Yet, there are places in my district that water backs up when we have heavy rains, so much so that it passes over the window wells of people, floods their basement, causes them a lot of damages to furnaces and stuff like that through no fault of their own, but because we have an antiquated system. So I think that we should have some kind of emergency relief fund. We can maybe make a 401c contribution where citizens could even contribute to it.
Good idea.
But I think at the very least, we should look at these hardships. In the past, when we do TIF projects, we used to look at hardship. Hardship used to be a reason to recapture taxes, to use to satisfy those hardships. I think we should look into creating, some kind of ordinance where the taxes could be credited from that property until such time as the damage has been recuperated for where we determine that there's been, emergency that was no fault of the people. And I think we have to address these things. I mean, I know people have abandoned their house because of the damage that was done. They just couldn't afford to overcome it. They had to abandon it. And then it falls in a blight on the neighborhood. The city will usually get involved in somewhere with a condemnation or something like that. We should be able to do something and start to get creative about helping people when they need help, when it's no fault of their own. Whether it's helping with private collection to aid, or whether it's to recapture some of the taxes, just like we do with the real big operators.
Would you say, if that was covered though by their insurance, then that would...
Oh, this would have to be outside of insurance.
Outside of it, just like we
Right.
have
Oh,
it.
yes, I mean, that's-
Outside of, they wouldn't have any other place to
I
get
mean,
the relief
you know,
from. Okay.
Insurance, sometimes act of gods aren't
Yes,
aren't
exactly
covered,
what
et
happened.
cetera.
Yes.
But it would be outside of insurance, of course.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak?
All right, I don't really have much to say since I feel like I've kind of said
Could you say your name and your address, please?
a lot
though?
already. I'm Brooke Sorensen. My house was the one that was flooded due to the Humboldt Road water main break.
On
and-
Gregory, right?
what's that?
On Gregory Street.
Well, yeah, well, the water main that broke was on.
Right,
Humboldt.
I just need your address.
Oh,
please.
yeah, 3152 St. Gregory Drive.
Thank you.
So 1 month from now, we're almost a full year to date where we've been living in completely terrible circumstances. While everybody else has like a dry, mold-free, healthy living space. Is this something that's our fault? No, but it is what it is. I believe the consistent foot dragging on the part of the city is an attempt to get me to wait to litigate until our claim time is barred. And I know the insurance aspect was brought up, which we didn't have that option. So I don't know what else to say about that. And I know the uninhabitable, I get that you said yeah, it's a split level home, so thankfully our bedrooms are upstairs, but it wasn't just downstairs. I mean, 2 floors of our house are completely gutted completely. And that, yeah, I get it, my job didn't matter, whatever, then home daycare, but not only did the basement and the lower level flood, but when all that, okay, so the house is enclosed, obviously it's winter, so yeah, our furnace was completely submerged, so I mean, you know how cold it gets here in the winter? I have a little girl, I didn't have her there for 3 weeks. I'm not gonna have her somewhere where we had no water, no heat, no hot water. How do you live, how do you live like that? You can't shower, bathe, you can't make any food. I mean, she's sick enough already. I don't need to have her continue getting sick, which is another issue because now my husband's suffering from fungal infections in his lungs, which I could put money down that it probably has to do with the amount of mold that we're living in every day for the last year, which I think is unfair. So yeah, if you ask me, like, it's uninhabitable, because even upstairs, like, I know there was one day, it's probably a couple days into it already, when we had people over, restoration helping, and they had all the, like, blowers and stuff running. I went upstairs to change my shoes because, like, everything's so wet. I took my shoes off, and, like, my carpet in my bedroom was, like, not just damp, like, pretty darn soaked, because all the walls, like, even inside, like, my picture frames, you can see that, like, everything got wet. Like, the entire house was wet. So it's not just the basement and the lower level that was physically underwater that was damaged. Like, my whole house was wet. Like, my daughter already has, like, respiratory issues, and, like, this has done nothing but made it worse. And I'm pretty sure that any of you that have kids would not like to be in my boat, seeing her, like, gasp for air, constant nebulizers, inhalers. Like, she was 3, she's 4 now, but it's a chronic thing, and it's just going to keep happening. And sadly, the one thing I want most is to get out of that house, get out of this city. And we don't even have that option. Like, we couldn't sell that house to save our soul. Like, who wants a home that everybody knows has been flooded? I mean, 50% of our home was underwater. And I mean, our electrical panel was underwater. We've now replaced our furnace twice since the flood. So we can't we can't even begin to start fixing it because we've already lost so much and spent so much money on the necessities we had to replace. We have loans everywhere. Like, I get that nobody wants to take responsibility because it's a lot of money, but, like, how would you feel if it was your family's, like, health and well-being constantly? And I get, like, it just keeps getting pushed off. There's more important things. I get it. It's a big city. You have a lot going on, but, like, do you really, like, everybody knows about this, and everybody just can't believe that, like, nothing is being done about it. It's making people, like, run away from Green Bay. Like, we're a young, new family that came to Green Bay. And, like, all you're doing is, like, scaring us away. I would, like, not recommend people to move here after, like, what we've been through. I mean, it was supposed to be a starter home, and, like, now all I see is, like, I'm stuck in this home for the rest of my life. That's not fair. If it was any of your families, you would not wish that on anyone. I know I got off topic, but it's kind of hard not to. That's all I got.
Thank you, Brooke.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else like to speak to this? No? Entertain a motion to close the floor then.
Also moved to close the floor.
Motion by Alder LaFave. Second. Second by Alder Corpus Dax to close the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, back to regular order of business. Alders. I guess would be your thoughts. Alder Galvin, do you have anything else you want to add?
I certainly feel for the Sorensen family, I really do. Just not sure if this is, what we have here in front of us, the best solution to that. And like I said before, because we are basically doing something that's never been done before, I'm very concerned of the unintended consequences that could occur from this. And I'm not sure what more I could ask of staff though, to look into this. But they've done a pretty good job already looking at all the potential pitfalls that we could fall into, but I'm very concerned. We've got an alder up here that's former Alder Zima talking about all the many homes in his district that have been damaged, he says, by issues with the city services. And I start thinking in my head, $50,000 a pop. You know,
but if you're thinking about like people that have like 28,000, 30,000, like things that are like you can, yeah, it sucks, but like you can move forward in your life. When you're talking about like over $100,000, like we're in our early 30s. Like, how do we even move forward from that?
Brooke, I understand, and I have to tell you that at this time you cannot speak.
Okay.
We can make a motion, open the floor again, though, if you wanted to come
No,
up and
that's
say some
fine.
more
I
things.
got nothing.
Okay.
So, I'm very concerned, and then how do we fund it? Right now, I don't see private organizations or people putting money into a fund for this, I really don't. Especially as they don't know, unless it's on a specific case-by-case basis. How much taxes would we have to raise for this? And then how do we keep it funded? You know, as it was, we took a 4% cut across the board last year on our budget. And if we had 10, 15 of these claims, you're talking over $500,000. And I just, again, I'm concerned. I guess if we had someone that could speak to how often this happens, how many times people put in claims to the city for this kind of damage where their homes aren't habitable, I'd have a better grasp of what we're looking at, but and I don't know if that's possible to get that information.
Thought we looked for that.
That question was brought up at the last meeting, and as the assistant attorney had said, we really don't have a basis to come up with that number.
Right.
And it's really, if they're unique situations and instances, so we've discussed it, we don't know how we would pull a number together for you to even
Right.
give you an estimate.
And then how do we fund it? Is it a year by year, we put more money in till we hit a cap, and then we maintain that cap? What if that fund is drained in 1 year? Where do we go then? Contingency fund? We don't have that much in there.
And if I could add one thing, it would be claims that were denied anyway because the city is not liable. So we wouldn't even know, we could do an analysis of claims that have been filed, but that wouldn't even touch the claim where the city isn't liable or
Right.
anything. So people wouldn't make claims typically in those situations. So
I
we would
see.
know.
I see.
Right. So it's,
Okay.
yeah, so again, there's a couple of communities that have provided cleaning materials and pickup of debris, and it sounds like there were some issues with that. They helped them get rid of it, and it sounds like, from what I've been told, some of those things are being addressed, but that comes nowhere near
Yeah.
what we're talking about here.
Other alders?
Maybe we need to look at funding some of these things that need to be replaced. Not the homes, but I meant like, the sewers and we
Yeah.
need to really, we need to be proactive in some of that. So we can, that's why the damages are occurring. So
let's
that's where we,
yeah.
I know.
Focusing back on this.
So we're kind of
Do you have
putting
any
the cart
opinions on
before the
that?
horse, for this.
I share the same concerns as Alder Galvin as far as we don't know what's out there and what could potentially be coming our way. My biggest concern is how do we fund this? We don't have a place where we can get this money from. So
Well,
we put this out there and not have any
Yeah, I mean,
fun.
everyone's real quick to have recommendations on how we should spend our money, but every time we talk about raising taxes, everyone's real quick to tell us they don't want to pay any more than they're already paying. I've already received phone calls late last year and already early this year about people concerned about their tax bills and complaining about how much their tax bills are. And,
Well, I've been a proponent of this all along, and I will continue to support it. And in the end, it's going to go to city council, and it's going to be voted on at city council. And this is an ordinance. Does this take a 3/4 vote, or was it just a majority, small majority? In the end, it's got to go to the council floor, I believe. And whether we vote up or down, I'll bring it to the floor next week, and we'll talk about it. And we'll talk about, I did like the idea I heard from Alder Zima about, former Alder Zima, about a 401c, and that was an idea I had earlier talked about with my husband today, whether there was such a thing. There are philanthropists in our community, and perhaps, but I didn't know the legalities of the city, doing something like that, because it would have to be something that worked with the city and the inspectors and such. And of course, I had said to get it from the fund balance, which won't be very popular at all, judging by the budget meeting and the meetings after the budget meeting. So I don't have the answer of where. I feel the same way that Alder Zima feels, or former Alder Zima feels, that something should be done to help people when something happens that is no fault of their own. So I am going to vote in favor of this, as I have all along. I'm still a proponent of it, and I fully realize it's going to have to be decided at council. No matter what we decide today, it's going to go to council next
Barb,
week.
do you think it needs more thought before it comes with like the 401K, what you mentioned?
I
501.
I personally don't feel comfortable kicking it down the road again. We've been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. I would like to have a discussion, but we have other alders here too that you guys want to see this coming to council.
Council, I think, yeah.
Council?
Let the
The
council.
longer we, I don't think we're gonna find a magic answer. So.
I don't think so either. Alder Johnson?
I've said it before, I'll say it again, the measure of a community comes from its compassion for its residents when they're in their highest moments of need. And, I mean, we have a family here who, I mean, is struggling, is in crisis mode, as a result of our failure to maintain our infrastructure. I mean, we've done our, not necessarily our failure to maintain it, obviously the negligence was not deemed there, but it's the aging infrastructure. And this is just one family whose anecdote, I think, brought the realization here. And there are many more that we haven't discussed, and I think that's a failure on our part to serve our residents. And so I would say if there's something here that we don't like, then let's be prepared to modify this. I mean, let's have that discussion. If you're just, if we have alders who are fundamentally opposed to this, that are gonna vote no matter what, I get that, that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But if there are just pieces of this that make us uncomfortable, I say move this on to council and let's be prepared to discuss what those pieces are and what the appropriate modification is. But for us to do nothing when we have residents that are being harmed by literally just living, that just does not feel right to me.
I agree.
Do we have to vote on this?
We just have to.
Then take it to council, or can we say that this can, pass it on to the council to discuss?
I think it's going to be,
Or-
we can vote on this, and whether the motion passes or fails, it can still be called to
Oh,
the
still goes to the
floor and
council.
council.
Okay.
Someone can call it to the floor, and then we will discuss it. And I can guarantee I will, if, so
Okay.
I think the best thing to do is to,
Even if this makes it through council passes this, we still will have to have a separate discussion on financing.
Yes.
And the financing will not occur till 2020.
Correct. As of this point, there was nothing budgeted in the 2019 budget. There was the normal roughly $100,000 that was put in contingency in the 2019 budget, but that's a normal contingency fund that is used throughout the year for items that were unplanned for. And that anytime you use a contingency fund, you do have to have a 2/3 vote by council to use any contingency fund. And then the other option, again, in future, is potentially to levy for it in future budgets like 2020. But again, and then the question is whether or not you would make this retroactive, or is it for new claims coming forward? How far back would you go if it's retro?
And that's another concern.
Yeah.
If it's retroactive, is it retroactive to this incident? Is it retroactive to the beginning of 2018, 2017? Does it include claims that haven't been made yet to the city, that people see an opportunity here because something happened and now they come forward with other claims? And I think all.
I understand what you're saying.
So, I'm not putting that down as a reason to vote yes or no. Are these things that we should address if this moves forward?
So we're really
in council.
from the council getting kind of the idea of should this move forward, because we can't really have an ordinance without a funding source.
Right.
And we'd have to have a
To interject
funding.
really quick,
Yes.
I believe City Attorney Chavez did mention that if the council or the committee wanted to approve the ordinance, it needed to identify a funding source simultaneously, otherwise you're
Right.
just creating kind of a shell ordinance
Right.
that isn't really gonna function because you don't have a funding source.
So council will have to come up with funding.
Correct.
And then, a date to start, which I will say January 1st, 2018. That's what I'll propose be the date to start, but we're not even there yet. Because it's almost like, is council even interested in moving forward on establishing a relief fund? Maybe let's do that first.
Well, I think if we have to,
What?
well, if this goes to council, we have to name a funding source.
Then council needs to name a funding source that night.
Does council need to name it, or do we name it here?
Either way,
Then let's let council
Let
do it,
council
because
do it.
all we're doing is,
whether it's by committee or by council.
because council has to vote on it in the end anyway. I really think maybe should this be a committee of the whole discussion? Is that a better way to do it?
At this point, I don't think that that would be the way to proceed, as it
Okay.
has been an item that's been
Okay.
on the finance committee's agenda.
Okay. So then
And
it'll just.
Right, it will be taken up as a
Taken
whole
up.
by council if it's pulled to the floor. So
Okay,
All right, I'll make a
effectively, it would be
motion
the same thing.
okay.
to approve this and to include that staff be prepared to address possible funding sources, all potential possible funding sources for this ordinance if it's passed at council.
At this point, we did list the 3 possible sources. I'm not sure if we would, between now and another week, we would probably come up with
Say
another
it one more
funding
time.
source.
What are the 3 sources again?
Well, we talked about, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. In 2019, there was no funding, and there was no money set aside specifically for this
Right.
item.
Right.
In 2019, there is about $110,000 of contingency, which is for any other unbudgeted item.
Right.
Again, that takes a 2/3 vote, and then, or future levying in 2020.
I hear you say fund balance. Is that another potential source? I mean, we're looking at all potential sources. Is
I
it?
guess it could be, yes.
Okay, so, because that's the only one I can think of. And whether that's gonna be approved or not, I don't know, but,
I don't know, I'd have to look into that only because if those are levy dollared and the fund balance left from a levy item, a budgeted levy item, and this, I guess I'll have to do some research on
Right,
it. If
and
it wasn't,
there's-
it wasn't originally in a budget, and that's why we have levy dollars, there's a fund balance based on what was levied in a budget. I'd have to do some research
Well,
on that.
and I guess that's a question. Could we look at unused dollars within departments as the year progresses? I mean, we decide not to buy item A, so we've got $5,000 sitting there. Or we don't hire someone like the city's famous for not doing, and we've got the saved salary and benefits money. I mean, is that so I guess I'm asking you to look at, to be creative, to think of all possible, if the city was really in a pinch, where would we get money from? And if you could look at all those options, plus what Mr. Zima mentioned before, was a 401c.
Is it 401? Yeah, not a 501. 401, is it 501?
I don't know what they're called.
What-
I don't know what number it is. But some charity, the charities.
That would not be by a city, that would be a nonprofit.
It would have to be, go through like a foundation or something.
Yeah, that would not be something that the city would
No.
start. That would
But it
be
would
private.
certainly.
Could a private foundation put money into that account?
Sure, they could, correct, and then they
Okay.
can put it toward the fund.
So I guess I want to hear how that could happen. So I guess if you, I know there's a lot to do within a very short period of time. But if you could look at those funding sources. There was also.
I didn't understand what that meant.
What he means,
Well, I
I
didn't understand
believe what he
that.
meant was that when your tax bill comes next year, your
Right.
city portion, you don't have to pay,
It goes towards
as it
your-
offsets that cost that you incurred to
Right.
rehab your house.
And it was up until like if it's your furnace, until your furnace is paid off. So every year you would have that fund.
Very administrative, if
That's-
somebody's tax bill is 2,000 and a furnace is
Yep, yep,
10, 20.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess, but if you could be prepared to address any and all those kinds of
Yes,
questions that could
yes.
come up at council. So that's my motion.
Do you want me to open the floor?
And I'll second. Well,
Okay.
Do we want to open? Okay. we'll
Yeah,
open
we-
First, okay.
Okay.
I'll move that we open up the floor.
Motion made, Alder
Second.
Dave to open the floor, second by Alder Galvin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Floor is open. Mr. Zima.
It just seems to me you're a little bit ahead of yourself. I think the first thing you should do is refer to the staff to develop some parameters, potential funding resources, and including potential caps on what's the most will contribute towards something.
We did do that, though. That's in the-
Okay.
That, we did. That's in the ordinance.
But it seems to me you need to bring something concrete to the council. And, you know, they can amend it one way or the other. I mean,
Then I
as
think
my
we need
mother-
to bring
as
the
my
ordinance.
mother always said, where there's a will, there is a way.
Right.
It depends on what your priorities are. And, you know, I just want to, you've got funding sources, you can bond for things if you want to. You know, we bonded to almost over $1 million, or about $1 million, just to light the bridges one time. So if we can light the bridges, we can also light the hearts of people and help where there's cases that fit our criteria. And also you could transfer from the general fund, I think that was mentioned. And have you forgotten, we have neighborhood enhancement funds?
Very little.
And, you know, we're not talking putting $1 million right away into something like this. But I think you've got to show where your aim's at, and you build this up over time, and you do what you can, and you help what you can. And if this isn't neighborhood enhancement, what is? You want to let something deteriorate? I don't know how these people can even stay in their house. I wouldn't stay in that house. But there's more than just this case. And I appreciate Mr. Galvin's comments. You know, what are going to be the parameters? Because I don't think it could just be unlimited charity, of course, but it has to be where there's at least the potential of city neglect involved. And of course, you know, the final say-so should be the council on every case. So you have choices, and you know, there's no reason why we can't develop a fund. You know, I've known the mayor to go out and collect all kinds of money for all kinds of purposes. If we can collect millions and millions of dollars to add new rides, and we collect some of those kind of bigger numbers to create a fund that says to people, Green Bay takes care of its own. I mean, I'm concerned about people abandoning this city from a number of different sources. But again, where there's a will, there's a way. Are you trying to find a way not to do it, or are you trying to find a way to do it? And I think you need to find a way to do it. And I mean, this kind of thing, you just can't turn your back on. And I'm not talking about just this one case. This is a pathetic case. But there are other cases that really hurt people, that we're not talking that kind of numbers. But you can get something created. You need to get the parameters hammered out at the committee and at the council level, and then fund it. You can find places to fund it, even if it's just a couple $100,000 that you take from neighborhood enhancement. That's what it is. If you have no other place, if you feel you can't take it out of your general fund or whatever. But as again, I'll say, where there's a will, there is a way. And you got to decide whether this is important to you or not. If it's not, fine. If it is, hey, move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Motion to go back to regular order business?
Motion to go back to order of business.
By Alder Galvin, seconded by Alder LaFave. All those in favor?
Aye.
Regular order. Okay, we had a motion by Alder Galvin to approve. Was there a second by Alder LaFave? So my understanding is we're going to approve this, we're going to vote on whether or not we're approving the motion as it stands. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, this will move forward to council, pass committee, and we'll hammer out some of the things. Just as a mention, anyone here who has not read the ordinance, read it, because it does have a lot of parameters in it already. So, okay. We're on to consideration with possible action on the report of the claims committee. And would you like to go into closed session?
Yes, we would need to move into closed session.
Motion to move into closed session.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor?
Aye. The council may convene in closed session pursuant to section 19.85, sub 1G, Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. The council may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.85, sub 2 Wisconsin stats to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda. Ta-da.
Okay. Next one. We gotta have somebody open the door. No, we have to.
Next one, we might close
Yep.
the meeting. Too bad we can't go into the next one.
I know.
But I know.
But we have to do it the right way.
Yeah.
All right, we're back in open session, and I'll entertain a motion to approve what was decided in closed
I'll make
session.
a motion that we approve staff's
Support.
recommendation for item 5.
Second. Second, a motion by Alder Galvin, second by Alder LaFave. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now, number 6.
Yeah.
Take with possible action on status of litigation in Dustin Krieger Dunno versus City of Green Bay. We must go into closed session.
Yes.
So I need someone to read, to make
I
the
make a motion that we go into closed session.
Motion by Alder
Yeah.
Galvin.
You know,
Second.
Mayor Mortensen's gonna be a big transparency advocate.
It's the law.
It's the law that you're going to close session for this. All right, so who wants to?
The council may convene.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Council may convene in
Okay.
closed session pursuant to section 19.85, sub 1G, Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. The council may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.85, sub 2, Wisconsin statutes to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda.
All right, I think Presidio could have
Okay.
done private,
But I know what Presidio says. 'Cause I
Oh,
It's been a point of contention at the PD, all those cops typing on their car computers while they're driving.
Yeah,
Everyone's
Talk about this.
distracted.
She's turning it on, people.
We are. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. All right, we're back in session. I will entertain a motion as far as number 6.
I'll make a motion that we approve recommendations by staff for reference item 6.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, report of the finance director.
At this point, all I was going to mention that we are starting our, we completed our interim audit, and we will be starting our year-end audit in the end of March. And we just finished our budget book, have been completed.
It's
and
on the
it'll be-
website.
So if you would like a hard copy of the budget books, just let us know, we can get, otherwise it's on the website.
There we go.
I think that's it for the report from the finance director.
Would you like us to receive it and place it on file?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'd like
Receive and place on file.
I like a motion by Alder.
Second.
Galvin, second by Alder Corpus Dax, receive and place on file. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And informational, the 2019 contingency fund is at $112,076. And the next Finance Committee meeting will be held on Tuesday, January 29th, 2019 at 4:30 p.m.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn
Motion adjourned.
by Alder Galvin, second by Alder LaFave. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.